Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Hem Kaur Saroya. And on the show today, Russia is back on the negotiating table. United States and Russian officials met in Saudi Arabia for the first high-level talks between the two countries since the Kremlin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. However, with Russia appearing to call the shots, it remains to be seen what role Ukraine will play in this peace process. We'll get you the latest on this on the show today.
Also on World DNA, Lebanon's civil defense has recovered 23 bodies from several border towns on Wednesday after Israeli troops withdrew under a ceasefire deadline. We will bring you the latest on that front as well from West Asia, and a lot more lined up for you right here on World DNA. Let's start with the headlines.
And $21 million for voter turnout in India. Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout.
President Trump questions a $21 million fund marked for voter turnout in India, says a growing economy like India does not need such financial support. And this is after Elon Musk-led Doge cancels the fund.
US President Donald Trump orders Justice Department to terminate all remaining Biden-era US attorneys, asserting that the department had been politicized like never before and he must clean house.
US Senate confirms Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary. The role will place the Wall Street billionaire at the frontier of Washington's tariff and trade agenda.
US State Department says Russia and the United States will name teams to negotiate a path to ending the war in Ukraine as soon as possible. This after the delegation from both countries met in Saudi Arabia.
Hamas to release all 6 living hostages and return the bodies of 4 other captives this week as part of the ceasefire agreement with Israel. According to Hamas, the exchange will include the return of the remains of 2 young children to Israel.
India calls out Pakistan as global epicenter of terrorism. Indian envoy to the United Nations says the country is harboring more than 20 UN-listed terrorist entities and providing state support to cross-border terrorism.
The European Central Bank extends its hybrid work policy for 2 more years, allowing staff to work remotely for up to 110 days annually. Unlike firms like JP Morgan and Amazon, which are mandating office returns, the ECB maintains flexibility.
Celtic's European adventure comes to a halt in heartbreaking fashion. The Scottish side were knocked out of the Champions League after Bayern Munich scored a 94th minute equalizer to snatch a 3-2 aggregate victory.
US President Donald Trump has questioned the purpose behind providing $21 million to India for voter turnout and said that the country, with its growing economy and high taxation rates, did not need such financial support.
Right. The statement came after US Department of Government Efficiency, that's DOGE, It took a decision to cancel USAID's fund marked for voter turnout in India. While questioning the fund, the US president, however, categorically mentioned that he'd had a lot of respect for India and the country's Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
President Trump and Prime Minister Modi recently held bilateral talks where they discussed trade, illegal immigration, defense and energy, among other key sectors.
And $21 million for voter turnout in India. Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high.
The Musk-led department had last week shared a list of areas from where it has decided to revoke the US aid. One of those included $21 million for voter turnout in India, prompting reactions from the country.
The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party's Amit Malviya alleged external interference to India's electoral process. On social media, he asked who gains from this, not the ruling party for sure. Opposition retaliated, with Congress Pawan Kheda asking the BJP how the party could sabotage its electoral prospects by getting this so-called electoral interference.
And US President Donald Trump says the talks between the United States and Russian officials in Saudi Arabia were very good.
And that he is now more confident of the Ukraine peace deal. While answering reporters' questions at his Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida, Trump lashed at Ukrainian President Zelensky and blamed him for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Trump increased pressure on Zelensky to hold elections, which is one of Russia's key demands, and criticized the Ukrainian for complaining about being frozen out of talks in Riyadh.
Now, Trump's statement came after Zelensky criticized US-Russia talks for excluding Ukraine, saying efforts to end the war must be fair and should involve European countries, while postponing his trip to Saudi Arabia.
The whole civilization has changed because of what? So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago? You could have made a deal. This is one that could have made a deal. There was no talk of this during the Trump administration. Putin would have never, ever done it.
The US president also suggested that he could meet Russian President Vladimir Putin before the end of the month, as US overhauls its stance towards Russia in a shift that has alarmed Europe.
Trump, however, said that he was all for European peacekeepers in Ukraine if he can strike a deal to end the war. He cited the example of France and UK, who he said were willing to send peacekeeping forces to Ukraine. However, cleared that the United States would not want to contribute because it is very far away.
Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that his country won't accept peacekeeping forces from NATO countries under any peace deal, following the high-level talks with the US.
We explained to our colleagues today that President Putin has repeatedly emphasized that NATO expansion, the takeover of Ukraine by the North Atlantic Alliance, is a direct threat to the interests of the Russian Federation, a direct threat to our sovereignty.
Now, after the meeting with the Russian delegation, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio briefed his European counterparts. On social media, top European Union diplomat Kaja Kallas told Rubio that the United States should not walk into traps set by Russia, alleging that Moscow aims to divide the West.
Over to West Asia, Hamas will release 6 hostages and return the bodies of 4 other captives this week as part of the ceasefire agreement with Israel.
Now, according to Hamas, it includes the bodies of Silberman Bibas and her 2 young children. All the 6 living Israeli hostages held in Gaza will be freed on Saturday.
Now, this includes 2 Israelis, Avera Mengistu and Hisham Al-Sayed, who have been held by Hamas since entering the Strip over a decade ago. The other 4, Tal Shoham, Omer Shemtov, Omer Venkat and Elia Cohen, were kidnapped during the October 7, 2023 attack.
فقد قررت الحركة والمقاومة ما يلي.
The movement and the resistance decided to hand over 4 bodies of the occupation prisoners on Thursday, February 20th. And the enemy will release the corresponding prisoners on Saturday, February 22nd, according to the agreement. Secondly, we will release on Saturday, February 22nd, the remaining living prisoners whose release was agreed in the first phase, numbering 6.
33 Israeli hostages were due for release under the first phase of the fragile Gaza truce that took effect last month, with 19 freed so far in exchange for more than 1,100 Palestinian prisoners. Of the remaining 14, Israel says 8 are dead.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's office subsequently confirmed that during indirect negotiations in Cairo, agreements were reached for the 6 living hostages to be handed over on Saturday, in addition to 4 bodies on Thursday and 4 more next week.
The family of Shiri Bibas and her sons Ariel and Kafir said that they were in turmoil, noting that they had still received no official confirmation of their loved ones' deaths. Ariel and Kafir, the youngest hostages, have become a national symbol of hostages' plight for many Israelis.
Hamas previously said that Shiri Bibas and the children were killed in an Israeli airstrike in November 2023, but Israel had not confirmed their deaths. Their father, Yardin Bibas, was also taken hostage separately and was released alive during a previous hostage prisoner exchange.
Meanwhile, a joint report by the World Bank, United Nations and European Union has estimated a cost of nearly $53 billion for reconstruction and recovery needs in Gaza. This comes as Saudi Arabia is set to host the leaders of Egypt, Jordan, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates on Friday to present their own plan for Gaza's reconstruction while ensuring that Palestinians remain on their land. After the Saudi meeting, Egypt will host an extraordinary Arab League meeting on Gaza on the 4th of March.
Qatar, a key mediator in the Gaza conflict, said on Tuesday that Palestinians must decide the territory's future. Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid al-Ansari said that it is a Palestinian question on who represents the Palestinians in an official capacity.
I would say that the Israeli government would have to reply to such a question. From our perspective, this is a Palestinian question on what happens in the sector post this conflict. It's a Palestinian question on who represents the Palestinians and who represent them, in official capacity and administrative capacity, but also the political groups and the political parties that are in their political sphere. And it is not a question for us or anybody else to answer.
Now, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi echoed similar sentiments as he chaired a UN Security Council meeting. He said that Gaza and the West Bank are the homeland of the Palestinian people, not a bargaining chip in political trade-offs. He added that Palestinians governing Palestine, it is an important principle that must be followed in the post-conflict governance of Gaza.
The situation in West Asia remains tense and fragile. Gaza and West Bank are the homeland of the Palestinian people, not a bargaining chip in political trade-offs. Palestinians governing Palestine is an important principle that must be followed in the post-conflict governance of Gaza. It is vital to uphold the two-state solution, press for a comprehensive, just and lasting settlement of the Palestinian question, and bring lasting peace and security to West Asia.
Now, Europe is more worried about Donald Trump than Vladimir Putin. As American and Russian diplomats meet in Riyadh, the coming together has caused a lot of unease in Europe.
And that definitely feels it's been sidelined, and Washington's moves are further emboldening Moscow. This is the sentiment in Europe. The next report brings the anxiety that has gripped European capitals. Take a look.
The war in Ukraine is raging. Europe stands at a crossroads. NATO faces its biggest test yet. Will the US abandon the security pact? There's a growing concern that US President Donald Trump may scale back or entirely withdraw American troops from Europe, particularly the Baltics, where it has more than 5,000 soldiers. Trump's willingness to consider withdrawing troops from Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania has sent shockwaves across the continent. European officials see this as a major security risk. In total, there are about 100,000 American troops in Europe. The US also has an estimated 100 B-61 nuclear gravity bombs that are forward deployed at 6 NATO bases in 5 European countries. The implications are stark: a potentially weaker NATO, an emboldened Russia, and deepening rifts within the European Union over how to respond. Moscow, which has the upper hand on the battlefield, is now demanding that Ukraine should be a demilitarized, neutral state outside any alliances.
The future of Ukraine needs to be a demilitarized, neutral state, not a part of any blocs or alliances, for as has already been acknowledged by a US colleague, now specifically President Trump. It is indeed the prospect of the entry of Ukraine into NATO which triggered the crisis. And I think that this is now clear to all.
Kyiv is rejecting these conditions, warning that without security guarantees, Russia could launch another invasion, a sentiment echoed by European leaders.
And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground, alongside others, if there is a lasting peace agreement. But there must be a US backstop, because a US security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again.
The most important thing about this meeting tonight is the need for all of us to step up when it comes to our spendings on defense. Russia is not only a threat to Ukraine, but all of us. So we need to scale up and we need to speed up.
An emergency meeting in Paris saw European leaders scramble for a united response, but Germany rejected calls by France and Britain to send troops to Ukraine. As European leaders grapple with their response, options range from dramatically increased defense spending to reduce US dependency to providing direct security guarantees to Ukraine. Yet each proposal faces resistance, highlighting the challenge of forging consensus in a fragmented Europe. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Tensions are boiling over in the Cook Islands. A strategic partnership deal between China and the Cook Islands has led to protests.
Now, accusations of backroom dealings and growing fears of Beijing's expanding influence in the Pacific have fueled the unrest. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Avarua, condemning Prime Minister Mark Brown's secretive New Deal with China.
I would say that the actions of our Prime Minister in the last 3 weeks has been someone of a person who thinks he owns our country as his own business. He's wheeling and dealing and making deals around the world that's affecting us, the people of the country, and we've got no idea.
The agreement, spanning deep-sea mining, education and economic cooperation, pointedly excludes security ties. Critics argue the deal opens the door for further Chinese entrenchment. The Cook Islands government, under intense pressure, releases the deal's action plan amid outcry over a lack of transparency. New Zealand, which has constitutional ties to the self-governing Pacific nation, expresses alarm.
Wellington was not consulted before the agreement's signing, despite its ongoing budgetary and defense support for the Cook Islands. The opposition has forced a no-confidence vote against Brown's government scheduled for next week.
The reactions from New Zealand government, hence the reason we are here today to protest to our government sincerely. Reconsider our position there, both, and be more transparent in the future to our New Zealand.
Prime Minister Brown defends the deal, citing a one-time $4 million grant from Beijing as a crucial financial boost. Yet concerns mount that China's economic assistance could come with long-term strategic strings attached.
The controversy underscores growing Western unease over China's rising influence in the Pacific. Over the past 3 years, Beijing has signed a series of trade, financial and security agreements across the region, challenging the dominance of traditional Western allies.
The country is located in Oceania, in the South Pacific Ocean, about halfway between Hawaii and New Zealand. Experts say the Cook Islands deal is yet another move in China's grand geopolitical chess game, one that could alter the balance of power in the Pacific.
Now, Japan will allow Taiwan to be listed as a place of origin in the country's family registry.
People from Taiwan will be allowed to list the island as their place of origin instead of China. And when a Japanese citizen marries someone from overseas, the spouse nationality and name are recorded in the registry system that local governments must maintain by law. Currently, people from Taiwan are described as from China. Japan regards Taiwan as a region, not a country, under a policy in place since 1972 when Tokyo normalized ties with Beijing.
According to the new rules by the Japanese Justice Ministry, from May, a name of a region can be written in the nationality field. A ministry spokesperson has said that the change follows requests from Taiwanese spouses who want to express their regional identity.
Japan cut official ties with Taiwan in 1972. However, the country has kept close economic relations with Taiwan. Taiwan's government welcomed the decision. Taiwan's foreign ministry spokesman said that the move will demonstrate respect for the identity of Taiwanese residents in Japan.
However, China urged Japan to abide by the One China principle. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson warned Japan against gimmicks on the Taiwan question and to not send any conflicting or wrong signals. Beijing regards Taiwan as its own territory and opposes any actions that attempt to confer international legitimacy on the island. All right, with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. Lots more on the other side when we return. Lebanon civil defense has recovered 23 bodies from the border towns. And this comes after the Israeli troops withdrew from Lebanon under a ceasefire deadline. What's more in this entire development? We'll bring you the full details on the other side.
Meta's WhatsApp could reportedly face increase in regulation within the European Union due to the growing popularity of its open channels. More details on the other side.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
We know that the Indians are in consultation with the Americans on this, so we leave it to our friends in India to decide. As far as we are concerned, Chabahar is a very important port.
The minorities, I mean the Hindus and others, are equal citizens of Bangladesh as with the Muslims. They have equal rights, they have equal protection under the law.
The BRI, as it is being perceived, is not really a strategic alliance that Nepal entered into with China, because Nepal, as you know, is a non-aligned nation and it does not enter into any strategic alliances with any country in the world.
And for doing that, there has been numerous rounds of negotiations with the UK government to try and finalize a deal.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
We know that the Indians are in consultation with the Americans on this. So we leave it to our friends in India to decide. As far as we are concerned, Chabahar is a very important port.
The minorities, I mean the Hindus and others, are equal citizens of Bangladesh as with the Muslims. They have equal rights, they have equal protection under the law.
The BRI, as it is being perceived, is not really a strategic alliance that Nepal entered into with China, because Nepal, as you know, is a non-aligned nation and it does not enter into any strategic alliances with any country in the world.
And for doing that, there has been numerous rounds of negotiations with the UK government to try and finalize a deal.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show. Let's get started with the headlines first.
India calls out Pakistan as global epicenter of terrorism. Indian envoy to United Nations says the country is harboring more than 20 UN-listed terrorist entities and providing state support to cross-border terrorism.
And $21 million for voter turnout in India. Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there.
President Donald Trump questions a $21 million fund marked for voter turnout in India, says a growing economy like India does not need such financial support. This after Elon Musk-led Doge cancels the fund.
Trump orders Justice Department to terminate all remaining Biden-era U.S. attorneys, asserting that the department had been politicized like never before and he must clean the house.
U.S. Senate confirms Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary. The role will place the Wall Street billionaire at the frontier of Washington's tariff and trade agenda.
U.S. State Department says Russia and the U.S. will name teams to negotiate a path to ending the war in Ukraine as soon as possible. And this is after the delegation from both countries met in Saudi Arabia.
Hamas to release all 6 living hostages and return the bodies of 4 other captives this week as part of the ceasefire agreement with Israel. According to Hamas, the exchange will include the return of remains of 2 young children to Israel.
Chinese firm halts exports of a key filtration equipment used in lithium processing. This signals the early impact of Beijing's proposed export controls.
Celtic's European adventure comes to a halt in heartbreaking fashion. The Scottish side were knocked out of the Champions League after Bayern Munich scored a 94th minute equaliser to snatch a 3-2 aggregate victory. Now, Israeli troops have withdrawn from Lebanon under a ceasefire deadline.
Well, this pullout has allowed many displaced residents to return to devastated border villages after more than a year of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah.
It has also enabled emergency services to retrieve the bodies from previously inaccessible areas. Lebanon Civil Defense has recovered 23 bodies from border towns after the withdrawal. The returning Lebanese say they have come back to find total destruction. Displaced residents walked into their hometowns to find piles of rubble and their homes destroyed. Israeli forces have withdrawn from border villages including southeast Lebanon's Odisha and Kfar Kila, Mais al-Jabar, Markaba and Hula.
Lebanese leaders are pressing Israel to fully withdraw, calling its continued presence in 5 places an occupation. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has said the government is in contact with truce brokers, US and France, to make Israel withdraw. The UN has called the incomplete pullout a violation of a Security Council resolution, and the Lebanese government has declared that it will ask the UNSC to require Israel to leave.
First, to refer to the UN Security Council, which approved Resolution 1701 and urge it take the necessary measures to address the Israeli violations and compel Israel to immediately withdraw to the international borders in compliance with the UN resolution.
Now, Israel announced just before the deadline that it would keep troops in 5 strategic points near the border. The army said that they were hilltops overlooking the frontiers where troops would remain to make sure there's no immediate threat.
Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said they would withdraw once Lebanon implements its side of the deal. Now, this ceasefire development comes ahead of the funeral of slain Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and his chosen successor Hashim Safieddin. Nasrallah was killed in an Israeli airstrike on the 27th of September last year as Israel scaled up its campaign against Hezbollah. Beirut airport will be closed for 4 hours on Sunday during the funeral. The government in India's Odisha state has set up a high-level committee to probe the death of a Nepali student at a local university.
Now, it has also directed the Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology to deploy officials to trace and facilitate the return of Nepalese students who were forced out of campus after protests over the death.
Police have taken into custody a male student as part of the investigation in the death at the women's hostel on the 16th of February. The third-year B.Tech student was found dead in her hostel room, following which Nepalese students staged a protest claiming that she was harassed by a fellow student. Following the protests, the university had directed all international students from Nepal to leave immediately, leading to chaos and panic. The high-level committee, under chairmanship of the Home Secretary, will ascertain the circumstances leading to the death and investigate the alleged high-handed action by university authorities. It will also probe the reasons for issuing notice only to specific groups of students and closing the institute side.
Now, the strong actions of the state government followed even after KIIT issued an apology over the incident. The letter from the Vice Chancellor added that the university was committed to the safety, dignity and well-being of all students, including students from Nepal.
Protests also erupted in Nepal over the death, with demonstrators sloganeering outside the Indian embassy in Kathmandu. Student organizations in the Nepalese capital of Kathmandu held placards and shouted slogans over university inaction.
In a post on X, Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli said 2 officers had been sent to counsel the students with arrangements made for them to offer them the options of staying in their hostel or to return home. Now, a local imam and a faith healer, Ajaz Sheikh, who sexually abused minor children for over 3 decades in the Sopore area of the Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, has finally been convicted after a decade-long legal battle.
The local court convicted the infamous pedophile, bringing relief to the hundreds of victims in the case. More in this next report. Take a look.
Sheikh misused the trust people had in the positions he held as an imam, teacher and faith healer in the area. It is one of the reasons due to which he could sexually abuse children for over 30 years and never get caught. There are thousands of victims of Sheikh's abuse in the district, and some of them have shared their horrific abuse tales. The court has on Tuesday decided to sentence the convict to 14 years of imprisonment, 7 years each in 2 cases of the 2 victims. He will have to pay a fine of 50,000 rupees to each of the victims as well. The victims are also at liberty to approach authorities for the compensation.
The learned CJM Sopore sentenced the accused to 7 years of rigorous imprisonment, each for 2 victims. In this case, which is, and the sentences will run consecutively, which is that he will be in for 14 years of rigorous imprisonment plus 50,000 rupees fine for each of the victims.
One of the victims in the case had revealed in the court of being raped for over 500 times by the faith healer over a period of 3 years, later developing some serious health issues. And in some cases, the convict used to ask the minor children to get involved in sexual acts while he would watch. Some of the victims were less than 10 years of age and were forced to do violent assaults.
He was hired as a Quran teacher. He would choose and take kids with him. He would tell the parents that there is black magic in the family and he would need the child below 12 years of age to stay with him, as he would want them to speak to jinns and heal them.
The first FIR against the Sheikh was filed on March 2, 2016. A year later, a charge sheet was produced against him, and since then the legal battle has been going on. The defense lawyers made their arguments in January this year. Over the course of time, the case saw many replacements. The judges were replaced 6 times, while the prosecutors were changed 4 times as well.
This case was filed in the Bomai area of Sopore in the year 2016 under Section 377. This convict was involved in sexual exploitation of children under the age of 18 and would harass those children by not revealing it to their parents.
Conviction of a fake faith healer by a local court has come as a big relief for the hundreds of victims who were sexually abused by him over a period of 3 decades. But the real question is whether this judgment will be an eye-opener for all those people who put their faith blindly into these fake faith healers. With video journalist Feroz Idris Loan for WION World is One.
Now, Goldman Sachs has raised its year-end 2025 gold price forecast to $3,100 per ounce, up from its previous estimate of $2,890.
The investment bank attributes this upward revision to sustained central bank demand, which is expected to add 9% to gold prices by the end of the year. The bank has also increased its assumption for monthly central bank gold purchases to 50 tons, up from the earlier estimate of 41 tons. According to Goldman, this structural demand, combined with a gradual increase in ETF holdings as interest rates decline, should outweigh any potential price drag from normalizing investor positioning.
Goldman Sachs outlines multiple scenarios for gold prices based on policy uncertainty and central bank demand. If uncertainty remains high, including concerns over tariffs and monetary policy risks, the bank sees the potential for gold to surge to $3,300 per ounce by year-end due to prolonged speculative positioning. If central bank gold purchases average 70 tons per month, prices could rise to $3,200. And conversely, if the Federal Reserve keeps interest rates steady, gold is expected to reach $3,060. The bank reiterates its go for gold trading recommendation, stating that while declining uncertainty could lead to a short-term price pullback, long gold positions remain a strong hedge.
Goldman Sachs also highlights fiscal risks as a key driver for gold prices. If concerns over US fiscal sustainability escalate, the bank expects gold to rise an additional 5%, reaching $3,250 per ounce by December 2025. Growing fears of inflation and fiscal instability could drive higher speculative positioning and stronger ETF inflows. Meanwhile, concerns over US debt sustainability may prompt central banks, especially those holding large US Treasury reserves, to increase their gold purchases.
Goldman emphasizes that gold remains a crucial hedge against financial and recessionary risks, trade tensions, and Federal Reserve policy uncertainty.
Bitcoin mining in the US is not just a digital revolution of sorts, it's driving economic growth, creating jobs, and reshaping local communities.
And our next report dives into the numbers and the implications of this rapidly evolving sector. Take a look.
The US Bitcoin mining industry has become a significant economic player, generating over 31,000 jobs and contributing more than $4.1 billion annually to the nation's gross product. Texas leads the charge, with Bitcoin mining generating around $1.7 billion in gross product, and creating over 12,200 jobs, including those tied to energy consumption. Other major contributors include Georgia, which sees $316.8 million in gross product and 2,300 jobs, and New York with $225.9 million in gross product and 1,600 jobs. Beyond economic contributions, Bitcoin miners also play a role in local communities through charitable giving, event sponsorships, and investments in infrastructure, improving overall living standards and offering specialized training programs. Bitcoin miners contribute to power grid stability, particularly in Texas, by adjusting their energy consumption during times of grid stress. This flexibility aids in energy planning and supports investments in power generation. However, the industry faces increasing scrutiny over its environmental impact, with concerns about high energy consumption. Some states like New York have imposed restrictions on mining operations. And at the federal level, lawmakers are debating potential taxation and environmental reporting requirements. In response, many mining companies have adopted strategies to reduce emissions, including repurposing excess energy like methane from oil fields and heat from mining for other uses such as greenhouse farming. The US remains an attractive destination for Bitcoin mining, driven by low-cost energy in states like Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. They offer some of the cheapest electricity rates in the country. President Donald Trump has expressed strong support for the sector, envisioning the US as the crypto capital of the planet and advocating for the construction of power plants dedicated to mining operations. His campaign promises include ensuring that all remaining Bitcoin is mined within the US, bolstering the nation's role in crypto and AI. Despite the 2024 Bitcoin halving, which cut miner revenue by 50%, the demand for Bitcoin is expected to rise, making it a more attractive long-term investment. However, the halving also presents challenges for miners, as their revenue per unit of hash power is halved. For investors, this raises the fundamental question of whether it's better to invest in Bitcoin directly or in the mining companies that extract it. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
All right, let's now take a look at the developments from the world of technology now. According to reports, Meta's WhatsApp could face increased regulation within the European Union due to the growing popularity of its open channels. WhatsApp recently disclosed that its WhatsApp channels feature had an average of approximately 46.8 million users in the EU during the latter half of 2024. The surge in users means that WhatsApp's open channels, which function similarly to a social network, now meet the criteria for a very large online platform under the EU's Digital Services Act. The Digital Services Act designates platforms with over 45 million monthly active users in the EU as very large online platforms or very large online search engines. This designation grants EU increased regulatory authority, covering areas like transparent advertising, content moderation, mandatory annual independent audits, data sharing with the EU, and more.
Elon Musk's X has challenged a German court order that granted election researchers access to the platform data. Earlier this month, a Berlin court ordered Elon Musk's platform X to immediately provide researchers access to data on politically related content ahead of the country's upcoming election. German civil rights groups had argued that the platform had a duty under European law to make election-related engagement data more accessible. In a blog post, X said the court order violates its due process rights and threatens user privacy rights and free speech.
And South Korea has accused DeepSeek of sharing user data with TikTok's parent company ByteDance. This week, South Korea removed DeepSeek from local versions of the Apple App Store and Google Play Stores over data protection concerns. Earlier this month, a US-based cybersecurity company alleged potential data sharing between DeepSeek and ByteDance. Meanwhile, South Korea's data protection agency said that despite finding a link between DeepSeek and ByteDance, it is yet to confirm what data was transferred and to what extent.
Well, D-Day for Pakistan is finally here. The cricket-loving nation will host its first multinational event in almost 3 decades.
As they take on New Zealand in the opening match of the Champions Trophy in Karachi, Pakistan enters the Champions Trophy as both hosts and defending champions. But their title defence has had a rocky build-up. Just last week, they lost to New Zealand in the Tri-Series final in Karachi.
Yet the Mercurial Greens remain favourites to win the opener and one of the most backed teams to lift the trophy on the 9th of March. Captain Rizwan on the eve of the tournament confirmed that Babar Azam will open the innings for them, which means a lot will depend on the veteran pairing of him and Fakhar Zaman to lay the platform for the considerably inexperienced middle order. Pakistan's strength remains bowling as always, and they received a major boost with pacer Haris Rauf declared fully fit for the opener. He will form the pace trio with Shaheen Shah Afridi and Naseem Shah.
Harris bowled 80% yesterday, that is 8 overs. A day before, he bowled 60%. He has been bowling with full rhythm. He says he has no problem. He is making efforts at the gym as well. I think he is fully fit.
Now, as for New Zealand, they're well versed with the conditions in Pakistan and come into the tournament with high morale. But they received a major blow on the eve of the tournament as their most experienced pacer, Lockie Ferguson, was ruled out with a hamstring injury. That means Matt Henry will lead their inexperienced attack. And just like in the Tri-Series, they would hope their spin attack, led by Captain Mitchell Santner, continues their remarkable performance in Pakistan.
Yeah, it's obviously nice to, to be performing. I guess you look throughout the Tri-Series and the warm-up game. We've been fortunate enough that everyone throughout the squad has had some time in the middle, whether it be with the ball or with the bat. And it's nice that we've been playing well. I think throughout the Tri-Series we were put under pressure in all 3 games, and we obviously managed to overcome that and come out on the right side. So.
All right, let's now take a look at what's making news in the world of entertainment. Bollywood superstars Salman Khan and Sanjay Dutt are set to make their Hollywood debut. The duo will be making a star-studded cameo in an upcoming American thriller. Reports suggest that the actors flew to Saudi Arabia for the film's shoot, which will end today.
Well, there's exciting news for K-drama fans. Star Kim Min-ha, best known for her role in Pachinko, has been officially confirmed as the female lead in the upcoming drama Typhoon Company, alongside Lee Jun-ho. Directed by Lee Na-jeong, the much-awaited series is set to premiere in the second half of 2025. The sudden passing of K-drama star Kim Sae-ron has left fans and the entertainment industry in shock. The 24-year-old actor was found dead at her sole residence on the 16th of February. Now, after the investigations, the authorities said that she died by suicide. The body of the late star was discovered by a friend who visited her apartment, and Kim was best known for her roles in series Bloodhounds and Girl at My Door.
All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World DNA.
And before we slip into a short break, here's a quick look at all the top climate stories making headlines across the world.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
To bring the benefit